So Deadlock just got a major update yesterday, and I just wanted to talk about it briefly. We've got major base redesigns. They look phenomenal. We've got some general map updates to different chunks around the map. We have 6 new characters that are going to be rolling out over the next 2 weeks, roughly. And we got a number of like presentation slash UI updates that just add a lot of flavor and a lot of quality of life to the game. So the overall presentation of the game is looking really, really good right now. But ultimately, if you log back on right now, like the objectives haven't really changed, the balance hasn't really changed, none of the new characters are out. So really what you're getting today is a whole bunch of presentation updates, right? Save for one major feature, which I think is a really big deal and is really what I wanted to talk about here today. And that's the new Street Brawl game mode. I remember sometime early last year, I think it was around the time that the map changed to being a 3-lane game mode rather than the original 4 lanes. I was chilling in Discord and I had a buddy come in and he was like, hey, is this that game that's, 50% MOBA, 50% hero shooter? And I sort of paused for a second and I said, no, actually, this game is like 200% MOBA, 200% hero shooter. And this is something that I had kind of thought to make a video about. The idea being that, like, if you could separate the two parts of the game, the MOBA that it is and the hero shooter that it is into 2 different sections, I think it has more, like, the hero shooter aspect asks more of you than the regular hero shooter would, right? The characters have more abilities, they have active items that they can use, the movement is generally just better, like you can double jump, you can dash to a roll, you can slide down hills. When you're sliding, you have infinite ammo, so there's just a whole lot of freedom of movement and generally more things that you can do with your character than a game like an Overwatch or a Marvel Rivals. And on the MOBA side of things, it's even more of a MOBA than, a game like League of Legends, let's say, because there's more things for you to be actively doing on the map. There's just more, like, smaller objectives that you can go and complete. In general, the itemization is much more open and fluid, where you can kind of take your character in a particular direction depending on what the match is asking of you. And I think both in a macro sense and also in a micro sense that you kind of can't separate from that hero shooter thing. It's just more demanding of you in general than, like, certainly a game like League of Legends, but even a game like Dota would be. And so, I really love the game that it is. I certainly am never an advocate for simplifying anything to, like, make it more appealing to a wider audience, because I just don't think that really works. But I think it does present an interesting challenge in that, like, onboarding new players is particularly difficult. I think somebody who has dabbled with a lot of MOBAs, has played a lot of League or has played a lot of Dota, and has maybe dabbled with hero shooters, is more willing to come in because they're more familiar with sort of the macro side of things. They're more familiar with itemization. They're more familiar with, they're more comfortable dedicating like 30 minutes to an hour of their time to like a single match. Whereas I think, if you have some of your friends like I have that are mostly like Overwatch players or mostly like Marvel Rivals players and come from that kind of hero shooter background, I think it is a significantly harder sell, because not only do they have to learn all of those hero shooter type mechanics, but they also basically have to learn how to play a MOBA from the ground up. And so in comes this Street Brawl mode. People kind of theorized before it came out that this was, the rumor was that this is like an ARAM. It's not really an ARAM, because if you're not familiar with the term, that means all random, all mid, which was like a fun game mode that you would play in MOBAs back in the day, and even now, where you're given a random character and then you all play in the one lane. In this, you specifically get to like choose your characters, just like you would choose in the regular queue, what character you want to play. Sort of the randomness aspect of it is that it's round based, right? So you play a round. You are trying to, the objective is, it's 4v4, it's all in one lane, and you're trying to just take the enemy's tower. And then if you take the enemy's tower, you win the round, and then you go to the next round. But at the start of each round, it shows you like 3 random items from a pool. And you choose one of the 3 items, and then this is going to happen 3 times. So you're shown generally 9 items, and you're going to choose 3 of them. And you get 1 reroll in case you get like 3 items that just don't speak to you, don't do anything for your build, don't help you in any particular way. But it's this interesting thing where like the build is sort of emergent, right? Like you're not just doing the same, in my case, like the same Shiv build that you've done over and over and over and over again. You're sort of trying to find the items and trying to find the pieces that help with this particular situation. And I think it's really fun. I think it sort of helps to address that that problem that we talked about earlier of the Overwatch and the Marvel Rivals player who are not quite willing to commit to like a 30-minute to 60-minute thing. And moreover, I think it helps with the onboarding where like, say you are somebody who's relatively new to the game. Like, yes, you can go into the sandbox and you can learn some of your character's abilities. Yes, you can kind of dabble with some of the items and like try to learn how they work and how they might change your character. You can look over the builds and whatnot. But I think where Street Brawl really comes in handy is like kind of learning how to use those characters in a team fight scenario. Because the whole mode is basically team fighting for an objective the entire time. And while it's not going to teach you things like laning, it's not going to teach you things like macro, it's not going to really teach you things like itemization, in that like you can't just go and buy the perfect item for this given scenario. It will give you experience with a lot of the items over time that you can then use later on to sort of make value judgments about those items when you are playing the larger like MOBA game mode, right? And honestly, I was already kind of thinking about this kind of game mode. I was like, you know, if an arcade ever gets added, which is, it's a feature in Dota where like people can create their own custom games and custom game modes. If an arcade is ever added to Deadlock, I think one of the first priorities should be to create an Overwatchy or a Marvel Rivals-y kind of mode. Because I think if you took this exact same framework where you're given items, you know, between each rounds, but you have like a pool of varied maps, and it's not just basically its own game mode that just takes place in a section of the currently existing map. But if you had like a pool of 8 new maps, right? I think that it would be much easier to bring over and convince those Marvel Rivals and those Overwatch players to come play. And I firmly believe that Deadlock is, just in terms of being a hero shooter, it would be a better product than some of those games. Again, the movement is just really crisp and really satisfying to get down. But I also think that they kind of duck some of the oddities that come with a rigid role-based structure. There's like one of two solutions that have existed previously, right? Overwatch kind of says, okay, there are tanks, there are DPS, and there are healers. You can queue as, you know, one of the three. If you're like a tank or a healer, you're going to have a pretty fast queue. If you're a DPS, then you're just going to have to wait longer because everybody wants to do damage, everybody wants to kill people, right? It's a shooting game. Or you go the Marvel Rivals approach where you're like, every man for himself, it doesn't matter. If nobody on your team wants to pick tank, or if nobody on your team wants to pick healer, you're just gonna wanna unalive yourself for the next 15 minutes, basically. Deadlock kind of ducks this by just saying, okay, every character is just flexible to some degree. Like, yes, characters have kits and they have designs that lend themselves favorably to one playstyle or another, but your role is dictated, at least in a big way, by the sort of items that you buy. And so you can take any character in a spirit direction, or you can take any character in a physical damage direction, or you can take any character in a tanky direction. And basically, no matter what, you're going to be some combination of the three. You might be really tanky and have a little bit of spirit damage, or you might be, you know, really gun focused and be a little bit tanky to help you get resistances from the things that you're facing on the enemy team. But in general, you're not like just a DPS, like strictly at the time that you queue and you select the character, right? The characters are more flexible than that. So I think this is a great initiative. I do think eventually down the road that there should be an arcade, and that this should be one of the major things that they're doing in the arcade mode. Or that we as a community are doing in the arcade mode, because you know, on the one hand, I don't want, let's say we have this this more traditional hero shooter type game mode, right? I wouldn't want development resources to be pulled away from the game that Deadlock already is to sort of supplement this new game mode. I wouldn't want there to be like time invested on the dev side to like try to balance these two game modes in tandem. But I think it totally makes sense for there to be a community initiative that sort of uses the existing framework, uses the existing tools, uses the existing characters to create a more traditional hero shooter for themselves. Because I think that it just makes the ease of getting some of those people over from those games a little bit easier. So this is definitely one of the changes that I'm most excited for in this patch. In terms of like the new characters, I'm personally really looking forward to Graves. I tend to gravitate towards like summoner type characters. So in League, I particularly enjoy like Yorick and Heimerdinger. In Dota, I've played a decent bit of Chen and Enchantress and those kinds of things, but I also have a Wraith King who will spawn like skeletons that'll walk down maps and stuff like that. I buy a lot of like Manta, or I play a lot of like Manta buying character. No, wait, is it? Yeah, no, it is Manta, the one that creates the two different clones of you that you can use in various different ways. So. And I play Lone Druid. So I just like that kind of thing. I'm kind of hoping that Graves is that kind of like summoner necromancer kind of character, because I think that would be really interesting. I have no idea how good that would be, but I think it would be really interesting. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to having a new list of characters, and if it's anything like last time, the character that I'm most interested in is also not the character that I end up enjoying the most from the patch, so I'm kind of excited to try everybody out and see, you know, what ends up sticking with me. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know who you're voting for down in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.
Mother weep in the shadow of our victory.
Buen trabajo.